corner, they talking real loud, spreading no lie, trying to bring me down. Enemies lurking, but I won't back away. Got a vision in my mind, I'm here to stay. Got my crew beside me, we rise like a tide. When the storm gets rough, we ain't gonna hide. Propaganda swirling, but it won't touch me. Only love around, that's how it's gonna be. Keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track. In the city lights where dreams collide, we hustle through the night, fire in our stride. Whispers in the dark can't dim my glow. With rhythm in my soul, I'm ready for the show. We break the chains, rewrite the rules in this concrete jungle where nobody's fools. Unity sings louder than the lies they scheme. In the heart of the struggle, we dare to dream. Keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track.
Another Queen Ahmadiyyah production.
Haze on the corner, they talking real loud, spreading no lie, trying to bring me down. Enemies lurking, but I won't back away. Got a vision in my mind, I'm here to stay. Got my crew beside me, we rise like a tide. When the storm gets rough, we ain't gonna hide. Propaganda swirling, but it won't touch me. Only love around, that's how it's gonna be. Keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track. In the city lights where dreams collide, we hustle through the night, fire in our stride. Whispers in the dark can't dim my glow. With rhythm in my soul, I'm ready for the show. We break the chains, rewrite the rules in this concrete jungle where nobody's fools. Unity sings louder than the lies they scheme. In the heart of the struggle, we dare to dream. Keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track. Haze on the corner, they talking real loud, spreading no lie, trying to bring me down. Enemies lurking, but I won't back away. Got a vision in my mind, I'm here to stay. Got my crew beside me, we rise like a tide. When the storm gets rough, we ain't gonna hide. Propaganda swirling, but it won't touch me. Only love around, that's how it's gonna be. Keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track. In the city lights where dreams collide, we hustle through the night, fire in our stride. Whispers in the dark can't dim my glow. With rhythm in my soul, I'm ready for the show. We break the chains, rewrite the rules in this concrete jungle where nobody's fools. Unity sings louder than the lies they scheme. In the heart of the struggle, we dare to dream.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and this is your morning wake-up call. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't done so already, be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time Queen Goddess goes live. Now, with that all being said, all right, hello, Claudette, Nessa G, we the people. Nene is in the house. The elder Baba Rashawn, all right. Charlene is here, 504 NOLA. All right, the lovely T. Let's get into it. Shout out to all of my loyal royals and everyone tuned into the Queen. And a big shout out to my moderators because y'all know they be putting in work. I see you, Desmond, Ishmael, Nessie X is in the building. All right. Ladriana, only Ladriana is here. Okay, let's get into it, Claudette, and we the people. So before we get started, I see you, Lawyer and Mel. Before we get started, let's have a brief word from my sponsor at 12 Tribes. Lights up, everyone, please. Like and share. Also, don't forget to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel, especially if you haven't been receiving notifications.
Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
Okay, Okay, so don't forget you can purchase 12 Tribes hair oil at Etsy.com. Just look for Lisa Crafts. You can also find it at Walmart.com. And also she also sells beard oil. Okay, so let's get into it because Trump has now threatened to sue the BBC, okay, for $1 billion. And so let's get into it because here's what's going on. U.S. President Donald Trump is once again on the warpath against a major global media company, having threatened the BBC with $1 billion lawsuit just this week. Now, the British public broadcaster found itself in hot water after airing a documentary in which Trump's January the 6th speech in 2021 was edited to make it look like he was explicitly encouraging his supporters to attack the U.S. Capitol. Now, as concerns over the documentary came to light, the BBC went into crisis mode with both its director general and head of news resigning. While meanwhile, BBC chair Samir Shah said the corporation was assessing the very serious allegations and then apologized for an error of judgment over the edit. Okay, so they absolutely did include something they shouldn't have because they've already come out and admitted it. But honey, Trump is suing them for $1 billion, which is so ridiculous. Okay, there are victims of abuse who don't sue for that much in damages. Trump is just ridiculous. Okay, so anyway, um, he's taking on this attack on the media because he's trying to make sure the media says exactly what he wants them to say at all times and never criticizes him. Okay, that's where all these lawsuits. I mean, just a all-out attack on the media. Now, in October of 2024, the BBC aired a panorama documentary called Trump, A Second Chance, in which it showed Trump addressing supporters on January the 6th of 2021. Now, in the panorama program, Trump was shown saying, "We're going to walk down to the Capitol and I'll be there with you. And we fight. We fight like hell." Now, the edit combined two separate parts of the speech, although this was not flagged to viewers, making it look like he had explicitly instructed his supporters to riot in a single statement. Now, they say that was not the case, as Trump had actually said, "We're going to walk down to the Capitol and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women." And only much later, in fact, around the 54-minute mark or 54 minutes later, he said, "I'll be there with you and we fight like hell." So they didn't lie about what he said, just how he said it. So the speech became, and that to me, that's minuscule. That's petty because either way it goes, he still told them, "We march down there and fight." Okay, either way, he still said it. Okay, so I don't see what the big deal is. But like I said, Trump does not want anyone saying anything about him. And here's the thing. Now, they did say that they could just edit out that part of the clip. I'm sure they could. But Trump wants them to just get rid of the whole documentary. Okay, because he's not satisfied. He's not happy with it. Okay, now the speech became infamous as Trump supporters descended on the Capitol after the address, with skirmishes breaking out with police and a number of protesters entering the building. I mean, they look like a bunch of monkeys climbing trees. Y'all remember how they got down, putting feces on the walls? I mean, it was complete havoc and chaos. And then, they stole Nancy Pelosi's laptop, and it was all crazy. Now, at the time, Trump urged those involved in the riots to just go home now. Yeah, but they had to beg him to darn near say it. Okay, they had to darn near beg him to say it. He didn't want to tell those people to stop. Now, the documentary doesn't appear to have caused a fuss at the time, but the editing process came to light when a memo written by ex-BBC advisor Michael Prescott was leaked to the press, in which he criticized editorial standards at the BBC. So that's likely what made them hone in on it and start paying attention. Now, the panorama documentary in the spotlight was not made by the BBC, but by a third-party production company called October Films. But nonetheless, questions have been asked as to why it was reviewed and approved for broadcasting. Okay, the documentary is no longer available to view on the BBC iPlayer. So a crisis engulfed the BBC as news of the rogue edit emerged. Director General Tim Davie and the head of news, Deborah Turnus, resigned. Okay, but that has not stopped the scandal snowballing, with questions centering on the BBC's editorial standards amid allegations of institutional bias even. Now, on Tuesday, the BBC issued a statement in which it said, "We accept our edit created the impression we were showing a single continuous section or continuous section of the speech rather than excerpts from two different points in the speech. Consequently, this gave the impression that President Trump had made a direct call for violent actions. Now, the BBC would like to apologize for that error of judgment. This is what they said, and they also said there was no intention to mislead. Now, Trump's legal team wrote to the BBC demanding that it immediately retract what it said. Here's the thing, and they wanted them to say that it was false, defamatory, disparaging, and inflammatory statements. That's what about the president in the documentary. That's what they once said. Okay, the letter, which was published in full by Sky News, said the airing of the program had caused President Trump to suffer overwhelming financial and reputational harm. Now, I was just going to bring that up. Okay, I was just going to bring that up. Trump's covered all his bases. He's covering his tracks. Okay, because what I was going to say next is, in order for him to have a valid claim of defamation, libel, and slander, and to actually win in court, he would have to prove the four elements needed to conclude that defamation actually occurred. He'd have to prove that they lied, that the information they lied about was shared with a third party, which it was because it was a whole documentary, and then also prove that they, caused him reputational harm and some form of damage as far as finances. Okay, so basically they're saying that's absolutely what happened, although I don't believe it, because if we all know Trump, and we do, he already had a jacked up reputation. I mean, I don't think there's anything that anyone can say at this point that would make it any worse. Okay, he's already the bottom of the barrel as it comes to morals, ethics, and anything that's good. So, with that all being said, he wants his funds. He wants to be compensated to the tune of $1 billion. I find this all so egregious. And so, anyway, they go on to say that the British government has defended the corporation. However, the culture secretary, Lisa Nandy, wanted to distinguish between editorial failings and the BBC's critics, who she said were launching a sustained attack on the institution itself. Now, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer also commented on the furor on Wednesday, basically telling lawmakers he believed in a strong and independent BBC. Okay, it's not the first time Trump has pursued legal action against big media organizations, with lawsuits launched against the Wall Street Journal, CNN, CBS, ABC, and the New York Times in recent years. Okay, in recent years. So Trump's determined that they're either not going to say anything about him at all, or they're going to say only what the hell he wants them to say, period. Okay, he's trying to make sure of that. I want y'all to pay attention. Okay, this seems like Yahtzee Germany. Okay, to me, with all the censorship and whatnot. That's right. Greta said BBC's just Trump's latest grift. Exactly. He's been doing that the whole time he's been in office. But check this out. Trump is very concerned about these Epstein files and all that's come from the release of these recent emails. And he's really running scared at this point and desperate. Also, Special counsel Jack Smith said that he had 100% conclusive evidence on Trump that would have gotten him sent straight to prison for him trying to overturn the 2020 election. And the only reason that he isn't in prison is because he won the 2024 election. Okay? That's the only reason he's not in prison. I want y'all to pay attention. And also, even other people could possibly have been implicated. Now, they say in a report released on January the 14th of 2025, Jack Smith, the special counsel, stated that his office had concluded that the admissible evidence was sufficient to obtain and sustain a conviction at trial of Donald J. Trump for his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Imagine him having gone to trial and then all the Epstein stuff coming out to boot. Okay, this could have gone a whole lot differently for Trump, and I really wish that it had. Now, if Trump had not been reelected and returned to the presidency, he would be in jail, more likely than not. Smith emphasized that the prosecution was brought because they believed the evidence was strong enough. However, the case did not proceed to trial because of the United States Department of Justice policy that a sitting president cannot be indicted, and because Trump was reelected in 2024, which precluded moving forward. That's why he had to win this election. Okay, or he was going down for the count. Now, Smith also discussed legal obstacles, notably presidential immunity issues and the challenge of charging certain statutes, which affected how the case was framed. Okay, now, so in short, basically, he asserted that the evidence would have been enough for a conviction, but the case didn't go to trial. So there's that. But they had him hook, line, and sinker. Okay, they literally had him. Isn't it awful? Isn't it awful? Now, let's get back into this Epstein debacle. Okay, let's get back into that. Well, before we go to that, hold on. Let's go to this Jack Smith report because they basically are saying that. Hold on, let me pull this up. Attorneys for former special counsel Jack Smith dispute inaccurate claims that he tapped the senator's phone. Remember, we were talking about this yesterday. They basically tried to say that he tapped the phones, even though he didn't. Okay, they were just upset because he got warrants. Okay, their phone records and everything were subpoenaed. That's what they're upset about. He never tapped their phones. And that's also why they were trying to get all that cash, trying to slide in that hidden provision, okay, in the funding bill.
Former special counsel Jack Smith is criticizing the Trump Justice Department. Smith says the indictment of former FBI Director James Comey and dismissal of charges against New York Mayor Eric Adams, quote, reeks of lack of process.
Nothing like what we see now has ever gone on. Process shouldn't be a political issue, right? Like if there's rules in the department about how to bring a case, follow those rules. You can't say, I want this outcome, let me throw the rules out.
Smith is also defending his investigations into President Trump, calling it ludicrous to think politics would have played any part. Justice reporter Luke Barr is here for more on that. So, Luke, in this interview, Jack Smith gave very few, it's one of the first public statements we've heard from him since he investigated President Trump. How significant is it that he's speaking out now?
Well, it certainly is, unprecedented for a special counsel to speak out like this. If you remember, we only heard from Robert Mueller, the former special counsel, in front of Congress one time. We've only heard from Robert Hur, the former special counsel who investigated the Biden classified document handling through his report. He didn't give really any on-camera interviews. And Jack Smith in this interview really defended the work of his prosecutors. He said that these people that he worked with at the Justice Department that he hired are good people that they want to do the best for the country. That's all they really care. All they really care about. And Diane, he also talked about the difference between the investigation into President Trump's handling of classified documents and the investigation into President Biden's handling of classified documents. He said the difference is the willfulness there, right? The intent to keep the documents was the difference, and that he believes that it would have made it to all the way to trial. But of course, the president won the election, and Jack Smith resigned. The cases were thrown out, Diane.
President Trump and his attorney general, Pam Bondi, have accused the Biden administration of weaponizing the Justice Department against President Trump. Could we see charges filed against Jack Smith?
Well, it's unclear if that is the case. It's unclear if he's even being investigated for something. But the president certainly has made clear that he would like to see some folks indicted, including James Comey, who was indicted, the former FBI director, New York Attorney General Letitia James. He's also suggested California Senator Adam Schiff be investigated, indicted for a crime that he may have committed. Unclear what that is. And of course, John Bolton, who had his house searched by the FBI. Unclear what the resolution of those cases are. Diane.
ABC News Justice reporter Luke Barr, thank you.
Okay, so there you have it. At the end of the day, his ass could have been in jail. Okay, he could have been headed to prison. But instead, he's in the White House, wreaking havoc, causing chaos. Lord, what have we gotten ourselves into? Okay, what have we gotten ourselves into? Now, let's get into this. Okay, so Jack Smith takes a valid swipe at Trump. So Jack Smith, the Biden-era special counsel under renewed scrutiny, okay, currently, by congressional Republicans is taking an apparent swipe at President Donald Trump. So, in a letter sent Friday to Senate Judiciary Chair Chuck Grassley, obtained by Politico, lawyers for Smith argue that that politics had no influence over their clients' investigations into Trump, and agreed that it would be unacceptable for any occupant of the White House to leverage law enforcement against a perceived enemy. Well, we know Trump does that all the time. He says such political meddling in prosecutorial decision making undermines the credibility of the Justice Department and the integrity of any subsequent enforcement actions. Now, this is what Lanny Brewer and Peter Kosky, lawyers for the firm Covington and Burlington, wrote to Grassley. Political meddling in prosecutorial actions also risk turning impartial law enforcement agencies into partisan tools to protect the president's allies and punish his perceived adversaries. This is all true. It's a not so veiled jab at Trump, who has faced scrutiny for publicly directing his attorney general to prosecute current or former government officials who investigated him or his campaign. So, and it's interesting that Trump is trying to accuse the Democrats of doing exactly what he's doing right now. Isn't that crazy? House and Senate Republicans have been probing whether Smith's former investigations into Trump's alleged mishandling of classified documents and efforts to subvert the results of the 2020 presidential election were motivated by a desire to undermine Republicans. Many Republicans believe Smith's work is evidence the Justice Department under then President Joe Biden unfairly targeted conservatives, namely Trump. They didn't unfairly target anybody. Okay? That's just the narrative they're trying to paint, when in fact we all can clearly see who's being targeted. Okay? We can clearly see. Now, let's go to Jack Smith's meeting with then FBI Director Wray, recorded as significant case notification in the January the 6th probe. So they actually could have had, yeah, that is projection, Leon. They actually could have had Trump. They could have had Trump not only for the into the election interference, but also for the January the 6th probe. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this started.
But it's private and doesn't spy on your searches. And DuckDuck.
Fox News alert. Fox Digital exclusively reporting moments ago the FBI says former special counsel Jack Smith tracked private communications and calls of nearly a dozen Republican senators. This during the January 6th investigation.
I'm sorry, but that's it. I thought he was about to give a whole full-on report. And did the video just cut off? And so anyway, they go on to say Fox News Digital exclusively reviewed the document that FBI Director Kash Patel recently shared with Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley and Senator Ron Johnson containing the new development. Now, Grassley and Johnson are currently reviewing the documents as part of their joint investigation into Smith's Arctic frost probe. They're going to try to hit this man with charges because he doesn't like Trump. Okay. Now, the information was included as part of a significant case notification drafted by the FBI's Criminal Investigative Division on May the 25th of 2023. And then on May the 24th of 2023, Special Counsel Jack Smith met with FBI Director Wray, according to the document. Now, the meeting took place just a day before the FBI's Criminal Investigative Division created the significant case notification document. Now, an FBI significant case notification is an internal record that they use, the Bureau uses to alert senior leadership and FBI field offices about a case of high public interest. Okay, to put them on notice. This notification provided a case update on Arctic frost, which the Bureau considered a sensitive investigative matter. Okay, so, and also here's the thing. They also said they could have gotten Trump on those classified documents that he had at Mar-a-Lago. Okay, they could have gotten him on that as well. Now, Jack Smith claims that he wants to tell his story to Congress, but when I asked him point blank if he ever met with Garland, Monaco, or Ray as part of his investigation, he refused to answer. Now, that's what Grassley told Fox News Digital. So the revelations are significant, as Grassley in October sent a letter that specifically asked Smith whether he had met with Ray. Okay, then Attorney General Merrick Garland, then Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco on the FBI Deputy Director Paul Abate. Smith replied to Grassley, but declined to share information about any of his meetings with those specific officials. Either Smith has a bad memory or he's simply not willing to come clean about his actions. This is what Grassley says, adding that if Smith really wanted the American people to hear the truth, he'd be cooperating with my straightforward congressional oversight request instead of making excuses. Well, to me, it sounds like that's what Trump's doing. It's making a whole lot of excuses. Now, I'm not going, and the Republicans as well, I'm not going to continue investigating to ensure the public gets full transparency. Okay? Or he says, I'm going to continue investigating. You have to make sure they get full transparency. Now, Smith in October requested to testify in open public hearings before the House Senate Judiciary Committee, saying given the many mischaracterizations of Mr. Smith's investigations into President Trump's alleged mishandling of classified documents and role in attempting to overturn the results of the 2020 election, Mr. Smith respectfully requests the opportunity to testify in open hearings before the House and Senate Judiciary Committees. Okay, that's what Smith's attorneys both asked for. And Smith did not immediately respond to a request for comment from Fox News Digital. Okay, so what do you all think about all of this? Mel said Trump swears the people are stupid and naive. Right, he really does. But the sad thing is that's exactly what he is. Okay, he's the one that's stupid and naive. Make no mistake about it. Okay, make no mistake about it. So, at the end of the day, we'll see how this all pans out. So with that all been said, let's go to this video here. Hold on. With House Speaker MAGA Mike talking about what's going on in the White House. Speaker Johnson says the House will vote next week to release all the DOJ files. And then Epstein said he gave his girlfriend to Trump in the 90s. Here we go.
Known in public, and he has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing when it comes to the late sex trafficker. But the president and his aides have been waging an intense pressure campaign that ultimately backfired here on Capitol Hill tonight, where that petition to force a vote on the release of the Epstein files now has all of the votes that it needs. The 218th vote came courtesy of the newest member of the House, Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva, who was sworn in today, 50 days after winning her election. Speaker Mike Johnson said tonight that that bill will get its vote here on Capitol Hill next week.
And here's the thing, Trump is very upset right now, okay, because there are some Republicans who have just, decided that they want those Epstein files out. There's at least 100 of them that have in fact defected, okay, according to reports. So the GOP is turning on him. Okay, slowly but surely. Well, we know there's going to be some loyalists who are going to stick by him, absolutely. But at the end of the day, he's very concerned, okay, because a lot of these people are turning on him because people want the truth. Now, he ran his whole campaign talking about the Epstein files. J.D. Vance constantly was on podcasts, going and doing whole interviews talking about releasing the Epstein files. Now, no one wants to even discuss it. Now, if you mention it, you're no good, low down, dirty. If you're a Republican who votes for it, this is what Trump said. He's trying to use reverse psychology. He's trying to manipulate and shame and blame people if they want the Epstein files put out there for all to see. Okay? Let that marinate. And here's the thing. He's also supposed to be in prison. Okay, let's not forget that. This man would have been in prison had he not won the election. Okay? But he has the nerve to talk about Maduro, the cartel that they claim stole the presidency over there in Venezuela. Him and Maduro are the same exact person, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, they are one and the same. I don't see any difference. Okay, except for their skin tone.
It's a totally pointless exercise. It is completely moot now. We might as well just do it. I mean, they have 218 signatures. That's fine. I'll do it.
The two members of Congress who have been leading the charge on this bill are my sources on the Hill tonight, Republican Congressman Thomas Massie and Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna. And thank you both for being here, obviously on a huge day for the two of you. I'll ask you, since he's the Republican House Speaker, he's calling it totally pointless exercise and completely moot. What do you make of his comments? Do you agree with those?
Well, the White House spent a lot of effort in the midst of a shutdown to stop a totally pointless exercise that's completely mute. And by the way, I got to give credit to Lauren Boebert to walk into the White House, the center of power, the free world, really, and to sustain that and to come back out and to be solid, and also to Nancy Mace and Marjorie Taylor Greene. There was all the speculation that they might take their names off, and they never did. So it's not a hoax. It's not a moot point. It is a very serious thing. There are 1,000 victims, and there are survivors who have had a press conference with Ro Khanna and I, and that's what we're fighting for, justice for them.
Did y'all talk to them at any point during this, as the White House was making clear they were targeting these members?
I talked to them. I don't want to say which one I had this conversation with, but one of them was told, we can't let Massie have a win. How petty is that? I mean, this is more than about political wins. It's about getting transparency and justice, which, by the way, this administration promised. You have the vice president, J.D. Vance, you have the AG, you have the FBI director. They've all done a 180 on this.
Yeah, they have all done a complete 180. Okay. That's what they've done, a 360. All right. And also, here's the thing. Trump, even though he's supposed to be in prison or at least headed there by now, well, it's interesting because he wants Pam Bondi to have other people prosecuted like Obama. Okay, let's talk about that because he even said Hillary Clinton, I told you all that. There's credible reports that Trump publicly urged Pam Bondi as U.S. Attorney General to prosecute political opponents. For example, on September 20th of 2025, Trump posted on social media addressing Pam and saying, they're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done. Why? We can't delay any longer. Justice must be served now. Y'all remember that? I typed it in all caps. He was livid. Okay, now he named several people, including James Comey, okay, Adam Schiff, and Letitia James as his primary targets. Now, as AG Bondi has also been reported as directing prosecutors to open a grand jury investigation into officials in the Barack Obama administration, okay, and concerning alleged mishandling of intelligence about the 2016 election. Now, Trump told Bondi specifically to prosecute both Obama and Hillary Clinton, okay? Because he's made frequent, a multitude of accusations against the both of them, okay? He said that there is concrete public evidence of a formal directive, okay? They say there's concrete public directives or evidence of a formal directive from Trump to Bondi ordering prosecution of these individuals by name, okay, in a way that is legally binding or fully documented. That prosecutors have brought charges against Obama or Clinton based solely on the advice of Trump and Bondi. In this context, as of now, public source indicates investigations, but not definitive prosecutions. So they're basically going to be trying to prosecute Obama and Clinton. Yeah, I find this all just so egregious. Okay. He wants these people prosecuted while he became the president just so he could avoid prosecution. Okay, this is a crying shame. Greta said he is so jealous of Obama and not fit to even wipe Obama's feet. Exactly. Okay, exactly. He definitely is so jealous of that man. It's ridiculous.
So the White House said to one of these members that they didn't want you to have a win here.
That's correct.
I mean, what does that say to you, Congressman Ro Khanna, as to the White House's motivation here? I mean, I think so many people look at this and say, why is the White House fighting this as hard as they are, and taking Lauren Boebert into the Situation Room, which is incredibly unusual based on my experience covering the White House.
They've really lost their way because it was really Donald Trump, and more than Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, who in podcast after podcast said, release the Epstein files. And I give credit of course, to the courage of Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace, and Lauren Boebert. They met with the survivors. It was personal. But I also give credit to Congressman Thomas Massie. I mean, he's got 3 billionaires literally pouring millions of dollars in his race against him to take him out simply because he wants these files released, which the president campaigned on. You know what? The left and right are agreeing on one thing. It's time to get rid of the Epstein class, these rich and powerful people who rig the rules for themselves and ignore forgotten Americans.
So how many Republicans do you think are going to vote for this next week when Speaker Johnson brings it to a vote?
I think there's going to be a deluge of Republicans. The longer this goes on, the more support we gain. And I think the speaker recognized that. And that's why after months of trying to stop us, he's decided to accelerate the vote because he knows we're going to get votes and that's going to carry momentum into the Senate. And that's why it's important to get a big vote in the House for Roe and I on this measure, is because that's where it goes next, is the Senate.
Yeah, so what happens here when it goes, if it passes and it does have that deluge of Republicans? I know you said today you thought 40 to 50 could potentially vote for it. Is that right?
Well, I think the speaker's concluded if you can't stop the parade, you might as well lead it. And so now he's saying, I want to have the vote. I do think that you could get 30, 40, 50 Republicans voting for it, because what are we talking about? We're talking about rich and powerful men who abused young girls and told people in junior high to go recruit others to be raped or abused. That's what we're talking about. And we're saying that these victims want to expose the men who did this to them. Some of these men still have buildings named after them. Some of them still have scholarships named after them. Enough. And so I think when it's actually a vote on the House floor, do you want these files released? Republicans and Democrats are going to vote yes.
So what does it say if that happens and there are that many people who are in the House who vote for it and the Senate doesn't take it up?
Well, you know, we used a discharge petition. This is a parliamentary procedure that's only available in the House. It's only been successful maybe 20 times in the history of our country.
Now, it's important to note that he's talking about the discharge position. Basically, several Republicans, a few Republicans have already signed it. Okay, they've already signed it.
Like, we had a 4% probability, if you look at statistics, of getting this to the floor, but we succeeded. In the Senate, They don't have a discharge petition, but they do have other ways. Each senator is almost like their own rules committee over there. And
did I say discharge position or petition? Because I meant petition, but let's continue.
By being dilatory or accelerating the process for other senators, they can cajole them into getting votes. And I think we could see a vote on this in the Senate.
Why do you think the president keeps calling it a hoax, as he did again today? And he basically said no real Republicans, no good Republicans that aren't stupid or bad would fall for this trap.
It's sad to me because I actually didn't do this to score points against Donald Trump. And I know Representative Massey didn't do it for that reason. We did it because we heard the stories of these survivors and we want justice for them. They're going to be out in front of the Capitol again on Tuesday. They were out about 2 months ago. And my guess is they're going to say the same thing. Mr. President, please meet with us. Listen to us. You can actually release these files.
Yes, he could actually release the files, and if he didn't have anything to hide, he would have already done so. It is blatantly obvious to me at this point that Trump is trying to protect himself. Not only himself, there's other people that Trump knows that are on that list, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so he's trying to protect himself. He's not going to release it. And here's the thing, even if the vote passes the House and Senate, Trump still has the ability to veto it. And he just might. Okay, and he just might.
And I rather Donald Trump do the right thing, even if he gets a political win, than for us to go on ignoring women who've been abandoned before Trump's presidency. These women have not had justice for decades.
So you're saying it's bigger than Donald Trump?
It's much bigger than Donald Trump.
Because the White House is saying this is something Democrats didn't talk about when Joe Biden was in office, which we've asked you about before, and said that that's the whole motivating factor here. But you say that that's not the case for you either?
No, and I think Roe can go back and find examples where he talked about these files. I can go back in my social media and show you examples where I talked about these files needing to be released before President Trump was the president. And I don't think it's about Trump. I looked at
those. So did President Trump, for the record.
Yes, he did, for the record.
And J.D. Vance.
Yeah, and members of the cabinet.
I looked at those emails there, and I don't think that implicates Trump any more than he's already been implicated. And I don't think he's trying to protect himself per se. I think he's beyond embarrassment. Look, I was in an oversight committee when we were arguing, should he have paid the prostitute he had an affair with through campaign funds, or should he have used his personal funds? He's beyond embarrassment. That's what these files could present to him. I think there are people who are criminally implicated that aren't Donald Trump, but they may be his friends. And I think that's who he's trying to protect.
So you think he's just trying to cover up for other people?
For other people, and also probably for our own intelligence agencies.
But wait.
Honey, this man's delusional. This man is clearly delusional. If he thinks that Trump is not concerned about himself, that he's actually concerned about other people more so than himself, no. Trump's worried about himself. Okay, Trump's worried about himself. The only reason he would care about other people is if those people paid him money to keep their names out of certain things and their names possibly could turn up. Okay, but Trump's worried about himself, please.
But when you read that email from the 2011 email that Jeffrey Epstein wrote to Ghislaine Maxwell, who is obviously serving her sentence right now, and he says that Trump is the dog that hasn't barked. I wonder what you read into that.
I think he's probably saying that why haven't they asked Trump anything? Why hasn't Trump spoken? But, you know, the reason this cuts right at Trump's message is people knew he wasn't perfect when they elected him. People knew he had a lot of things in his past, but he promised, he said, look, I may not be perfect, but I'm going to take on the corrupt elite. I'm going to take on these people who just pay off politicians and have impunity and are shafting you. And now he's become part of Washington, and people are like, what happened to him? Why has he become part of the swamp that he said he would drain? And so, in my view, what would redeem him after months of dragging this out is to release the files. For the life of me, I don't understand why he just doesn't release the files, and let's have the left and the right come together to say enough with the Epstein class. They need to go.
Yeah.
He's part of the Epstein class, fool. I mean, why are you so perplexed? He's part of the Epstein class. That's why he won't release it. I mean, listen, if we're being honest, there's only one good reason that Trump wouldn't release those files, and we all know what that reason is. Okay, or at least we should know. This is all crazy. At the end of the day.
Look, I could be wrong, but I look at that email and about dogs barking. It's cryptic. Maybe they suspected he was going to inform on them. I don't know.
Okay, so you're saying there could be other interpretations.
Yeah.
I do want to.
Yeah, now I said that too. That could have been their interpretation, but then again, why would Trump inform on them when he was part of it? Okay, he was part of it, clearly.
Clarify something, which I'm not sure is I've clarified before, but Stormy Daniels isn't a prostitute.
Allegedly. Let me just say allegedly, honey, because I don't want Trump suing me for $1 billion, because I'm going to just keep it real with you. I ain't got it.
She's a porn star that alleged to have slept with the president at the center of that agreement. But on this front,
By the way, I say both should be legal.
When it comes to that's a conversation for another time. But when it comes to the motivation here and how MAGA voters feel about this, I mean, you speak to these people. You're someone who has been outspoken against the White House, but you don't generally disagree with some of the things that President Trump does or has run on policy-wise. How do you explain to voters why the president is fighting your discharge petition or fighting the release of this documents from the Justice Department?
Well, you know, I vote with my party 91% of the time, and which means I have agreed with the president 91% of the time. But when they're protecting pedophiles, when they are blowing our budget, when they are starting wars overseas, I'm sorry, I can't go along with that. And back home, people agree with me. They understand, even the most ardent Trump supporters understand sometimes he gets bad advice, sometimes he gives bad advice, and we wouldn't model our lives after him, his personal life. And they're okay with that. I mean, you can still like Donald Trump in Kentucky and like what I'm doing and what Ro Khanna is doing, which is trying to get transparency.
Well, and we were watching Adelita Grijalva be sworn in today. And as soon as she was sworn in, she walked over and signed this discharge petition. Seconds later, you went up and shook her hand, as you noted, before any other Democrats had actually even gotten over to her side.
You couldn't hear what I said, but I apologized to her for what my own party did, which was to keep her from being sworn in and depriving an entire congressional district of representation for 49, 50 days, which, you know, I won a special election myself. I think I was sworn in within a week, and there was no reason to delay this other than the petty thing that now Now the speaker is accelerating. He tried to delay this vote. He deprived a congressional district of a congressperson. And now he says, well, okay, I guess I lost. We'll have the vote next week.
Okay. So with that all being said, they're trying to protect not only Trump, but themselves. Some of them are involved, like I told you all. Now, here's the thing. The full list of Republicans voting for release of Jeffrey Epstein files. So the House of Representatives is set to hold a vote releasing the Epstein files, okay, after a 2-month hiatus prevented the newly elected Democratic Congresswoman Adelita Grajova of Arizona from assuming her role. Now, she's already signed it and the vote is next Wednesday. Okay, so Republican Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky filed the discharge position and called for a vote on the bill, which he just told us, okay, which he wrote with Democratic Representative Ro Khanna of California. Now, the bill will require the Justice Department to release the Epstein files within 30 days. Along with Massey, Republican Representatives Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, Nancy Mace of South Carolina, and Lauren Boebert of Colorado signed the petition. So on Truth Social, Trump said Democrats were attempting to revive the Jeffrey Epstein hoax, adding that only a very bad or stupid Republican would fall into that trap. Now, the same 4 Republicans who signed the discharge petition have said publicly that they will vote for the release of the Epstein files. Marjorie Taylor Greene, now the Georgia Republican, who has recently broken with President Trump over his foreign policy decisions, confirmed on X that she would vote to release the Epstein files. She says, I honestly believe it's not only the right thing to do for the victims, but it's also the right thing to do for the country. Okay, Americans deserve transparency. Lauren Boebert said the Colorado Republican has confirmed that she will vote for the release of the files, telling reporters outside the Capitol that she would not remove her name from the discharge position. She says she was the co-sponsor of the bill and would force a vote. Nancy Mace. Now, despite seeming pressure from the White House, the South Carolina Republican has maintained her support for releasing the Epstein files. Okay, Mace wrote on X saying, I signed the discharge petition. I was one of 4 Republicans to do so. I stand with all survivors. God bless all those who never had a fighting chance. The Epstein vote will be for you too. Okay, so Thomas Macy on X, the Kentucky Republican, shared Greene's post saying he also wrote, in spite of a last-ditch effort by the president to foil the motion and add Speaker Johnson's propaganda, the discharge petition I have been leading just succeeded. Okay, in December, the entire House of Representatives will vote on releasing the Epstein files. Now, here's what people are saying. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene wrote on X saying, under full Republican control, there were only 4 Republicans that signed the discharge petition for the Macy resolution to release those Epstein files. Next week, when everyone is forced to go on record to vote to release the Epstein files, I expect the number of Republicans to be a lot higher than actually vote yes. Now, with that all being said, President Donald Trump wrote on Truth Social saying the Democrats are trying to bring up the Jeffrey Epstein hoax because they'll do anything at all to deflect on how badly they've done on the shutdown and so many other subjects. Okay, only a very bad or stupid, okay, we know the rest. And then they go on to say, the Democrats cost our country. Trump says this, they cost our country $1.5 trillion with their recent antics of viciously closing our country while at the same time putting many at risk, and they should pay a fair price. There should be no deflections to Epstein or anything else, and any Republican involved should be focused only on opening up our country and fixing the massive damage caused by the Democrats. Trump, sit down somewhere. Okay, Annie Farmer, one of Jeffrey Epstein's accusers, said in a statement after the emails were released that the more information that comes out about Epstein, the more questions we're left with. Survivors deserve more than a trickle of information. Okay, so Representative Lauren Boebert wrote on X saying, together, we remain committed to ensuring transparency for the American people. And then Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, said in a statement, These stories are nothing more than bad faith efforts to distract from President Trump's historic accomplishments. Did y'all hear this? And any American with common sense sees right through this hoax and clear distraction from the government opening back up again. So what happens next? The vote on releasing the files is set to take place next week. It's an earlier timeline than expected previously. So there you all have it. Now let's go to this exclusive. Top Trump admin officials hold Situation Room meeting on the House to push on the House push to force Epstein files vote. Let's get into it, honey. This Epstein debacle's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere, Trump. Right? It says, I hope all the Republicans vote. LOL. I hope they all do too, or at least most of them.
Jeff Zeleny, he is at the White House for us. Jeff, good to see you. Sources telling CNN that top administration officials met today in the Situation Room about the House vote. What does that tell us? What are we learning?
Well, Casey, look, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that in the briefing today, confirming our CNN reporting that Lauren Boebert, of course, a single member of Congress, not a leadership member, not on any key committees, had that meeting in the Situation Room with the Attorney General of the United States, with the Deputy Attorney General, with the FBI Director. And of course, Lauren Boebert is one of the Republicans who has said she would cross over and sign that discharge petition, which would allow the House to go forward and vote on releasing the Department of Justice Epstein files. Lauren Boebert has just told our colleagues on Capitol Hill that she has no plans of changing her pledge to vote for that. But that extraordinary meeting here at the White House just underscores the stakes of all of this. The White House sought to explain the meeting in the Situation Room earlier today like this.
It is not a coincidence that the Democrats leaked these emails to the fake news this morning ahead of Republicans reopening the government.
Why are White House officials then meeting with Representative Boebert in an effort to try and get her to not sign this petition calling for the release of the files?
Doesn't it show transparency that members of the Trump administration are willing to brief members of Congress whenever they please? Doesn't that show our level of transparency?
So an extraordinary briefing by any measure. I cannot recall a time where effectively a rank and file member of Congress would have such a high level briefing in the Situation Room of all things. But never mind that. President Trump also pushing back in a very significant way on Truth Social throughout the day about the release of the Epstein files. I'll read you just a flavor of some of what is on his mind, Casey. The president writes this: the Democrats, he says, are trying to bring up the Jeffrey Epstein hoax again because they'll do anything at all to deflect on how badly they've done on the shutdown and so many other subjects. Only a very bad or stupid Republican would fall into that trap. Any Republicans involved should be focused only on opening up our country. However, when the new member from Arizona is sworn in, the discharge petition is scheduled to happen sometime after that, and then the shutdown vote happens later this evening. But the bottom line to all of this is the whole reason the House of Representatives has been away for nearly 2 months. It is to effectively try and end the whole Epstein conversation. Well, that is right back happening this afternoon in ways the White House could not have anticipated it. So yes, they were scrambling a bit on this. But again, we should point out, even though the president's name has been mentioned several times in these in very interesting ways, still no evidence of any wrongdoing by him. But a question is, was he aware of any wrongdoing by Jeffrey Epstein? And that is less clear. Casey?
A remarkable set of facts at hand. Jeff Zeleny, thanks very much for that reporting.
I'm sorry, let me put that back on because hold on, they have a panel coming up. Hold on, I don't want to miss this. Could be relevant information. So let me go back to the share.
David Urban. We're also joined by Donald Trump's former attorney, Bill Brennan. Thank you all for being here on what is quite a newsy day. And David Urban, you're laughing to yourself. Yeah. This is obviously part of this release from the House Oversight Democrats here. I thought it was noteworthy that Caroline Leavitt used the word pedophile to describe Jeffrey Epstein. In the past, we've not heard White House officials use that word in the context of President Trump. How do you think the White House should be handling it? What does it tell you that they felt like they needed to meet in the Situation Room to try to prevent a vote for more of this to come out?
Yeah, look, the Situation Room is obviously they're meeting there because probably went phones away and maybe talking about some very sensitive information regarding victims and other things. I mean, who knows? It's part of it may be classified. I'm not quite sure what they're discussing, but look, I've been pretty steadfast in my position on this from the get-go. Release everything, right? I don't understand why during the Biden administration, Democrats weren't so excited about releasing all these Epstein files when Joe Biden was president for 4 years. We could have had this, and we could have had a hearing. What I think, again, we should have the line attorneys in the Southern District of Miami, as well as Alex Acosta, who was the prosecutor in this case, that gave Jeffrey Epstein a lighter sentence. We should have a hearing. We want to know what's going on. Let's bring those people forward and hear from them. I'm not so concerned about what's in the files. I'm not sure there's anything in the files, but I'd like to know why they gave him a much, much softer deal than he would have gotten otherwise. And I'm much more concerned about why the Democrats for the past 4-6 years haven't said peep about it until today. Just it's a little too right, but I'm for total transparency. Let's get it out there. It's the best. Sunshine's the best disinfectant.
Bill Brennan, you have served as Donald Trump's attorney in past lives of yours, and obviously are a practicing attorney currently. This seems to stink. What would your advice be?
Well, to a large degree, Casey, I agree with David Urban. If there was a smoking gun, they would have released it. The thing that was released today was an alleged email exchange between a convicted felon, man who died in prison for being charged with heinous crimes, and a alleged journalist who, instead of just reporting on what he purportedly received, was giving strategy advice on how to use it. Maybe we can use it for political capital. Maybe we can put it in our back pocket. You know, Casey, I've been on your show many times, and you've never given me any talking points or strategy advice. You ask me questions, and I answer them. So I think that if there was a smoking gun, we would have heard it. And I agree with David to release it all. Let's see what's in there. You know, if there's something bad, which I'll be shocked, frankly, but it is or it isn't. So release it all.
You're, of course, referring to Michael Wolff, who journalist, author, who was involved in these exchanges with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein that we saw today. Elliot Williams,
yes.
There were some redactions in the documents that Democrats put out. Then Republicans released.
Okay, so please pay attention to the fact that they say this is the Republicans' typical playbook. Blame someone else, distract the public, and hide the facts. Okay? They're going to hide the facts. That's what they're going to do.
The redacted names. And they claim that it was because this victim, Virginia Giuffre, has publicly said she never witnessed any wrongdoing by President Trump. Obviously, the details here are important, but the big picture is also.
And let me say this, the reason the reason the Republicans, in my opinion, I can't prove this, but I believe that the reason the Republicans said that Virginia Giuffre was the person sitting in there for hours with Trump is because Virginia had already publicly stated, and I'm sure I told you all this before, but she'd already publicly stated that there was no wrongdoing that she saw Trump do. But mind you, just because she didn't see Trump do anything wrong doesn't mean that he didn't do anything wrong. I don't think Virginia was around Trump a lot. She was more so with Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, so if she was not around Trump a lot, it is very likely that she wouldn't have seen him doing anything wrong. So they're trying to make it as though, oh yes, she was around him for hours and she never saw him do anything wrong. That was Virginia that was in there. That's who that was. No. Miss me with it, because like I keep telling you all, if that was Virginia Giuffre, she's dead. They wouldn't have had to redact her name. And then even it makes no sense to redact it and then tell us who it is. Okay, so the lies continue.
Critical. I think I just keep coming back to this basic question of why won't they just put out all the files?
Yeah, and we have a stunning degree of unanimity on this conversation today because we're all in agreement that this stuff should have been out there. Let's be clear. This is 100% a crisis of Pam Bondi and Donald Trump's making. They let this mess happen. Had 6 months ago, they simply released the document, said, number one, this is what is in our possession that we are allowed to make public. Number two, this is the material in our possession that we are not allowed to make public because the law does not allow it. And number three, this is what Donald Trump knows. Some of it might be a little bit embarrassing, but number one, he thinks Jeffrey Epstein is a creep, but he did not engage in any wrongdoing. And here's what he knew. If they'd just done that 6 months ago, they wouldn't be here dealing with this mess. And Pam Bondi standing at the Oval Office and suggesting that she had binders of information that she was passing out and was set to release the whole file only made this situation worse. They screwed up.
Yeah, it did make the situation worse. Because you sit there, Pam Blondie. Okay, you sit there as if you have all of this stuff ready to go, as if you can't wait. Okay, let's release the Kraken. And then nothing. All of a sudden, there are no Epstein files. All of a sudden, it was a whole hoax. Okay, so that definitely set off red flags right there. Let everybody know that something shady is in the mix. Okay, but with that all being said, I think it was Greta or somebody said that the next distraction was going to be a shutdown, another shutdown. I forget who said that, but here's the thing. They already have the next distraction, honey. They already have the next distraction. After those emails were released, Trump started his next distraction, and that is something called Operation Spear. Okay? Operation Southern Spear. That's the distraction. Okay? That's the distraction. At the end of the day, so the U.S. Naval Forces Southern Command, part of U.S. Southern Command, announced a campaign called Operation Southern Spear. This was actually in January of 2025, described as a deployment, a heterogeneous mix of robotic and autonomous systems known as RAS to support the detection and monitoring of illicit trafficking in the Caribbean, okay, or Latin American maritime zone. All right, that means on the sea. That's why Trump's been having those airstrikes on those boats. Now, on the 13th through 14th of November of 2025, Pete Hegseth, the U.S. Secretary of Defense, publicly announced. See, there's always an announcement when Epstein comes to the forefront. Okay, he publicly announced Operation Southern Spear as a mission to defend our homeland, because we got to do that, right? Okay, from those nefarious smugglers and whatnot, remove narco-terrorists from our hemisphere and secure our homeland from the drugs that are killing our people, he says. Now, the region covered by the operation includes the Caribbean Sea, Eastern Pacific waters near Latin America, and especially around Venezuela. Okay, so here's the distraction right here. Please don't miss it. Okay, please don't miss it. So the precise operational parameters are not clearly laid out. It is unclear whether this is purely a counter-narcotics mission or whether it implies broader military operations, including strikes on state territory or regime change objectives. Now, the legal basis rules of engagement and identification targeting protocols for narco-terrorists or vessels that have raised concerns among allied countries. There is ambiguity about whether this is simply a rebranding of ongoing counter-narcotics efforts or an escalation into full military engagement mode. So they're about to start a whole war on the sea. One if by land, two if by sea. Okay? That's what it is. That's what it is. Okay, here is the distraction. Queen, I got to give it to you. You got an excellent station. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. Thank you. This is all so nefarious. Full military engagement mode, they say. So use of robotic and autonomous systems, unmanned surface vessels, interceptor boats, unmanned air vehicles, vertical takeoff in maritime domain awareness and indication or indiction roles. Okay, these are the key components. the reported elements thus far. Significant U.S. military presence in the region, warships, aircraft carriers, submarines, fighter jets, etc., all deployed near Venezuela and in those Caribbean waters. Okay, direct mention of strikes on alleged drug smuggling vessels. The operation is linked to attacks on vessels in international waters in the Caribbean and Pacific blamed on narco trafficking. Now, the mission appears designed to not only disrupt drug trafficking routes in the U.S. homeland, but also to assert U.S. military posture in the Western Hemisphere. The Western Hemisphere is America's neighborhood, and we will protect it, as stated by Hegseth, okay? The Secretary of War, mind you. Now, the buildup has triggered reactions from Venezuelan authorities, mobilization of troops, warning of invasion, framing the U.S. deployments as an escalation, and it is. Okay, some U.S. allies, UK, Colombia, have reportedly expressed concern about intelligence sharing and the legal or ethical basis of U.S. operations under this whole campaign. So now the allies have concern, looking at us with a whole side eye, like I keep telling you all. Trump is dismantling the United States brick by brick. Please pay attention. It's all going down. Now, in this transition, or if this transition from maritime interdiction of vessels to land attacks or strikes inside another state's territory, i.e. Venezuela, okay, it would present a significant escalation of U.S. military engagement in that region. Legal and diplomatic implications, these are the implications. How are narco terrorists defined? Are the operations conducted consistent, okay, with international law, sovereignty, maritime law, rules of engagement? What's the deal here? Okay, regional ripple effects, because they have some of those. The reaction in Latin America, both governments and popular sentiment, increased tensions between U.S. and states such as Venezuela. Possible involvement of other global powers. That means other forces could get involved, okay? And they likely will. Domestic U.S. implications, okay? The framing of drug trafficking as a national security threat, warranting overseas military operations. Well, this just might shift how similar issues are treated in the future. I want y'all to really think about this. The framing of drug trafficking as a national security threat, warranting overseas military operations. Y'all know how this might shift to similar issues or how they're treated in the future? Anybody caught selling illegal substances? Anybody caught trafficking? Well, they're gonna probably start giving these people death sentences, because that's what Trump's giving them out there on the sea. He's killing them. He's having these people murdered. And I want you all to pay attention. It sounds crazy, right? That they would give somebody a death sentence for selling illegal substances. But Trump already said that before. Trump has already said that drug dealers should get the death penalty. Okay, that's because people who look like him are heavily involved with opioids and other narcotics. That's what he said. So I want y'all to pay attention. This is the grand distraction. Okay? I'm going to have to change my title on my thumbnail, because that's exactly what this is. At first, I thought it was a political time bomb ticking, because here's the thing. Let's talk about that. See, the thing I was thinking. Now, hold on. Now, check this out. So, while they're talking about they had all the receipts, facts, proof, and evidence to have Trump arrested and tried and even convicted for the classified documents and the 2020 election interference, I was thinking, could they actually have Trump put on trial after he leaves office? Because he has immunity as long as he's in office, right? Could they actually try and convict him once he got out? I think so. And that's why Trump said there's never going to be another election. That's why Trump doesn't want to ever leave office. I want y'all to pay attention. That's why he and MAGA Mike are saying, and Bannon are saying, that he could be in there for a third term. Okay, let's talk about it. Because when I started thinking about this, I said, now what is the statute of limitations on election interference? Because it's been about 5 years, right? That was 2020. We're in 2025, about to be 2026. So it's been 5 years. What is the statute of limitations? Well, the statute of limitations for election interference can vary depending on the specific violation and its location, states or federal. For federal campaign finance laws, the current state of limitations is 5 years for both civil and criminal violations, though there have been proposals to extend this time frame. Other federal crimes, like those related to espionage or certain national security laws, can have a 10-year statute of limitations. It's important to distinguish between different types of violations, as some, like conspiracy, may have rules that begin the clock on the date of the last overt act. On the date of the last overt act. So here's the thing. Trump may still be able to be prosecuted. Okay? He may still be able to be prosecuted. Let's hope that he is. Okay? Let's hope that he is. Roddy said, rewrite the Constitution. Okay? Whew. DJ Big Six said, how did Nixon resign? In disgrace. That's how. In disgrace. So, a map by Newsweek shows the latest extent of U.S. military buildup in the Caribbean. Secretary, hold on. Jordan pop-ups. Okay, here we go. Now, here's what they say. They say the Trump administration is conducting a military campaign in the Caribbean where it deployed naval and air forces in what it has framed as a crackdown on narcotic smuggling. American forces have carried out airstrikes on about 20 vessels in international waters, killing at least 76 people. First, it was 11 boats and 43 people. Now it's 70 or 20 boats and 76 people, as confirmed by Washington most recently on Monday. Out here murdering people. And I want you all to keep in mind, they have already come out and said that these people are fishermen. Trump has not shown us one shred of evidence that they're out here smuggling drugs. He's not shown us one shred of evidence, not one. The U.S. has said that the boats were linked to the regime of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, although Caracas has denied this. Now, Operation Southern Spear will add to speculation over whether the U.S. will directly attack Venezuela. Hegseth announced the launch on X of U.S. military operation to target so-called narco-terrorists as part of Operation Southern Spear. Y'all, it's about to get really real. Do y'all see how willing or how far this man is willing to go? He said he was not going to be the president of war. He said he was going to be the president that stops wars, that ends wars. But looks like he's ready to go to war just so he doesn't have to face the Epstein debacle. Trump is getting a war because he feels he can. He's an idiot. Yeah, he's definitely that. It's definitely that. But let's continue. Likes up, everyone. Please like and share. Thank you in advance. I'm going to this TikTok someone did about this whole debacle.
So Trump got one whiff of those files and said, look, we got to go to Old Faithful. It's time to go to war. This happened just a few hours ago. He got Pete Hegseth to announce something called Operation Southern Spear, which is going to be targeting folks in the Southern Hemisphere. Now, they claim this is to protect the homeland, but come on, guys. We know what this is about. Right after Trump and his goons met in the Situation Room, they couldn't do this in the Oval Office because the contents of what they were talking about, they couldn't risk it getting out. So they had to go underground to a sealed-off bunker, and the meeting went so bad, Trump had to smash the red button and said, look, it's time for war. That man is cooked. And this flailing action from Pete Hegseth, Mr. No War himself, makes it abundantly obvious. Don't let them distract you. Keep the pressure up. Anyway, support our Substack, link to my bio.
There it is. Enemy Kia. Trump revives playbook from Afghanistan for campaign targeting alleged drug boats. Yeah, that's all he did. He revived the Afghanistan campaign. Now claimed 80 lives, they say. It was 76 a minute ago. Now it's 80. Wow. Deep below the U.S. Capitol in a secure room meant to protect discussions of American secrets, a wave of sarcastic laughter spread among lawmakers and staff members who were assembled to revive a briefing in late October for senior Pentagon officials. The Navy Rear Admiral and a top civilian advisor to the Defense Secretary had made the trip to Capitol Hill to walk lawmakers through an accelerating string of strikes that to date have now claimed 80 lives. The attacks were part of a campaign the Trump administration says is aimed at disrupting the operations of drug cartels. But in a meeting, the lawmakers expected would center around growing concerns over whether the military had the legal right to kill traffickers without knowing their identities and without a trial. Okay, the two Pentagon briefers had left something behind, the military lawyers who had been scheduled to attend. Okay? So the announcement of the sudden cancellation by the lawyers was immediately seen by some of the lawmakers as a classic stonewalling tactic. With no lawyers around, the Pentagon officials could claim ignorance on legal questions, triggering the riot of laughs in the secure room. That's why everybody was erupting in laughter, because they knew what they were up to. But what the Pentagon officials did have to say that day struck several attendees as very troubling, deeply troubling, in fact. It was the way briefers described those killed in the operation's so-called enemy combatants that seemed to provide evidence that the administration was dusting off the playbook of the drone war in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Now, the briefers discussed the strikes against alleged drug boats in nearly identical terms as those carried out by the Middle East during the global war on terror. Killed in action, target, signature, enemy combatants. That's how you label it. I was like, wait a minute, enemy Kia, or I'm sorry, KIA, which Kia is an acronym for killed in action. What war are we talking about here? What declared conflict am I missing? One source familiar with the briefing asked CNN. Okay, now in that and other briefings with lawmakers, military officials have acknowledged they didn't know the names of those killed, the exact destination of their vehicles even, or did they have documentation to prosecute them for any of their crimes. So they just killed them. But the target's actions fit the intelligence of what the briefers referred to as terrorist activity. And so they were labeled as enemy killed in action, or KIA, a phrase used for decades to represent troops perishing on the battlefield. So the U.S. spent more than a decade carrying out attacks known as signature strikes based on similar rough intelligence profiles as part of its drone campaign in the Middle East. But that campaign occurred during a period when U.S. troops were routinely coming under enemy fire and were facing regular roadside bombings. Okay? Now, U.S. forces operating in and around Latin America have not reported taking fire, and the Pentagon has said no troops have been injured during its recent operations in the regime. You see, before, with the whole Afghanistan debacle, they were met with resistance and fire. Things were happening to them, bombings and all of that. So they had a right to do the things they were doing. This fool doesn't. There's not been anybody injured. There's been no talks of strikes or any of those things. But nonetheless, the U.S. military has conducted 20 strikes, destroying 21 boats, while labeling those killed as narco-terrorists. What do y'all think about this? This is very unsettling. Just to be killing people that are likely innocent, and who knows who's on those boats? What if some of those fishermen that they were talking about going out to try to earn a living, what if they had their teenage sons or daughters with them? What if they had their wife out there to help them? Who knows who the hell's on those boats? But Trump is having these people murdered, and nobody's doing a goddamn thing to stop him? Are you serious? This is absolutely crazy. This is absolutely crazy to me. 80 people dead. Y'all don't see this as crazy? And labeling these people who are probably innocent narco-terrorists. killed in action, enemy combatants. Secretary of Defense, I'm sorry, I thought they changed it to Secretary of War. Pete Hegseth has been explicit in drawing the comparison between terrorist groups and drug trafficking operations in Latin America, calling them the Al-Qaeda of the Western Hemisphere. Let me tell you something about Al-Qaeda. Now, he wants to sit here and call these people Al-Qaeda or even liken them to such, knowing that they could possibly be innocent altogether. But at the end of the day, didn't they have al-Shakur in the darn White House who was literally linked with Al-Qaeda? He was a whole terrorist, and the U.S. deemed him as such. But they had him in the White House. But now they want to talk about innocent people that they're having murdered. He says, my advice to foreign terrorist organizations, do not get in a boat. That's what he said. So these fishermen can't go out there and fish to gather food, to earn a living. This is crazy as hell. I'm sorry, but this is absolutely egregious. This is absolutely egregious. I want y'all to pay attention. Cinch Prophetic Bastard, thank you for your super sticker donation, beloved. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. Desmond said, innocent people, pure evil. Exactly. Thank you for a super chat donation, beloved. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. Okay, Black Aviator said, beyond crazy. Yes, it absolutely is. Like, make it make sense. Most of the strikes against boats have been drones. Okay, they've used drones designed to carry Hellfire missiles. Okay, think about that. Hellfire missiles? Why do you think they call them that? Now, the same combination of hardware that had been the backbone of the signature strike campaign in the Middle East. Though CNN has reported that AC-13 or 130J gunships have also participated in some of the attacks in Latin America. This is all egregious. U.S. officials have told Congress they do not need to identify the individual targets before killing them. Why not? Why don't you need to identify these people before killing them? Why don't you need to know if there were children or women or elders in those boats? Mirroring an argument made, now he said this, mirroring an argument made by past administrations to justify similar strikes against terror networks. Well, like I said, in those cases, the U.S. was being attacked. Okay, they were being bombed. There were strikes, being enacted on them. So that was totally different. This is not the case here. Now, they say the risk is that a signature is misinterpreted or erroneous and an innocent party is attacked. This is what Mark Cancion, a retired Marine Corps colonel and a senior advisor with a CSIS Defense and Security Department said. He said the same thing I'm telling y'all. He described how signature strikes in the Middle East use traits of a target and how that same logic could be applied to the drug boats. In the Caribbean, that means that if a vessel exhibits characteristics A, B, and C, then it is presumed to be running drugs, he said. Though he added, it's possible that the administration has more direct information and is not releasing that to avoid compromising sources and methods, maybe. No, that's not what it is. That's not what it is. Thank you for giving them the benefit of the doubt, but they get none from me because they're liars, and we've already proven that. Okay, so at the end of the day, I don't think that they have any direct information. I think they don't know or give a damn who they're blowing up. Okay, who they're murdering. But unlike during the war on terror, the Trump administration lacks congressional authorization as well for a sustained military campaign against alleged drug traffickers. Okay, he doesn't need permission from Congress. Let him tell it. Now, CNN first reported on the existence of an opinion produced by the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel, which legal experts said appears to justify an open-ended war against a secret list of cartels and suspected drug traffickers. Now, the opinion appears designed to give the president power to designate drug traffickers as enemy combatants and have them summarily killed without legal review. Okay, that's what the experts said. So he's deeming these people as drug cartels, waging a war against them and having them killed without so much as any type of due process. Historically, those involved in drug trafficking were considered criminals with due process rights, however, okay, with the Coast Guard interdicting drug trafficking vessels and arresting the smugglers. Okay, a distinction with a very clear difference compared to terror groups, okay, that have been targeted in these sort of strikes. But Trump's trying to label drug smugglers as terrorists. First things first, he never said or proved that these people were, or he did say it, but he never proved that these people were drug smugglers. For now, Trump administration lawyers appear to be relying heavily on the president's broad Article 2 authority, the section of the Constitution that outlines the role of the president, including their command of the military. Taken together, the Trump administration is testing the bounds of its authority to wage war abroad, fueling concerns among lawmakers on both sides of the aisle who continue to question the president's legal justification for these nefarious strikes, killing 80 people so far. And there's going to be more. Now, it has also raised questions as to what lessons the administration and military may or may not have learned from the decades-long conflict in the Middle East. The Pentagon did not reply to a request for comment for this story. Yeah, we already know that. How many briefings have I sat in at this point where there's some general or admiral sitting there and giving me vignettes about operations and talking about the number of people they kill, enemy combatants they kill, their boats they blow up, or tanks they're blowing up, and how the mission was a success. And none of them could actually tell me what the strategy and end game was and how they were going to measure success. Representative Jason Crow, a Democrat who is a member of the House Armed Services and Intelligence Committee, gave this information to CNN. And so this is no different. I mean, they have learned nothing from our last 25 years, it seems. This is what Crow, who also served 3 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan and was an Army Ranger. That's also what he said. So while Trump's broader plan for the counter-drugs campaign has not been articulated publicly, top officials have made clear that they intend to continue targeting smugglers using a similar playbook to the one used for killing terrorists. Even though terrorists and smugglers are not the same. So in practice, current and former U.S. national security officials told CNN the two missions are not so different. This is what they say. It's not so different. They say network targeting is network targeting, said the former U.S. intelligence official with knowledge of the administration's current strategy focused on dismantling drug trafficking groups. They are very different. They absolutely are very different. Please miss me with it. Here's the thing. Would you, and I want you all to think about this critically, would you give the same sentence to a person who sold a kilo of cocaine? I shouldn't have said that word, but too late now. But would you give the same sentence to some person who sold a kilo, right, as you gave someone who blew up the Oklahoma City building, who committed the Oklahoma City bombing, Timothy McVeigh, i.e.? Would you give them the same sentence? That's not the same, right? One of them they're both doing something illegal. One of them is selling an illegal substance. The other one murdered 160-some people. Why would you give them or treat them the same? Why would you give them the same punishment? You wouldn't. And so that's why this makes no sense. Some of these people are innocent. Probably all of these people are innocent. But Trump's deeming them as drug traffickers just so that he can distract us from the Epstein debacle and have these people murdered. Y'all all right with that? Because I'm not. And for them to sit here and try to act as though, and this is a former U.S. intelligence official, not one current. So they have nothing to lose. Please pay attention. Now, with that all being said, it's no different than when Trump was labeling some of the Venezuelan immigrants here as being a part of that Tren de Agua drug criminal gang, even though some of them weren't. He was labeling all of them as if all of them were gang members. So anyway, however, the end state complicates things. This is what the former official added. Now, the strikes against alleged drug boats started September the 2nd, announced by President Donald Trump in a post on social media, claiming that the boat was being operated by the Tren de Agua gang. That first strike killed 11 people. Trump wrote this on his social media as he claimed that the gang was being directed by Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. Trump thinks we're supposed to just take him at his word. It really is so infuriating for me because he really thinks that just because he says something, everybody's supposed to just go with the flow. Everybody's supposed to just get on board. He's not shown any damn receipts at all. None at all. Now they go on to say TDA is a designated foreign terrorist organization operating and the TDA is Tren de Agua, okay, operating under the control of Nicolas Maduro, okay, responsible for mass murder, drug trafficking, trafficking, and acts of violence and terror across the United States and Western Hemisphere. This is what Trump says. Now, that was a theme in the early wave of strikes as Trump's administration tried to tie Maduro to drug trafficking, namely fentanyl, while attacking boats near the Venezuelan coast in the Caribbean. It coincided with a massive buildup of military assets in the Caribbean, which now includes the Ford Carrier Strike Group, and has raised questions about whether the U.S. intends to strike inside Venezuela and potentially try to oust Maduro. So while those tensions continue to simmer, the boat strike campaign began to expand to the Pacific Ocean in late October, shifting focus from fentanyl to stopping the movement of Coca-Cola. Now, and not the kind you drink, the kind that goes up your nose. The announced targets also got less specific. Nearly all of the subsequent strikes, including that first in the Pacific, were against a designated terrorist organization, and as announced by Pete Hegseth, mirroring the global war on terror framing of attacks. Now, the Pentagon has deliberately shifted its strategy in recent weeks to striking suspected narco traffickers in the Eastern Pacific Ocean rather than the Caribbean Sea, because administration officials believe they have stronger evidence linking Coca-Cola transport to the U.S. from those Western routes, according to CNN. Here's a thought. Why don't they link them to the routes first and then start the strikes? Why wouldn't they do that first? Because then that would let them know if these people were actually trafficking drugs. They don't want to know because they don't care. They just want to kill people as a distraction. The intelligence suggests that Coca-Cola is far more likely to be trafficked from Colombia or Mexico rather than Venezuela, the sources said, raising more questions about the true purpose of the U.S. military buildup in the Caribbean Sea. Yeah, because I would have questions. If you don't really even think that there are trafficking people or trafficking illegal substances from Venezuela, why the hell are you blowing up those boats? And why the hell are you trying to link it to Maduro, who you say is a cartel, but he's the president, even though they say he stole the election. But nonetheless, okay, you get where I'm going. But the shift to strikes in the Pacific has led to concerns from other countries in Latin America that the boat strike campaign signals a broadening that could only continue. So Mexico has long been viewed by U.S. officials as an epicenter of the drug trade, and Trump himself has repeatedly inquired about sending American troops across the southern border to target cartels based there. And the Mexican president Sheinbaum has repeatedly told him no, they don't need or want his help. Because once you let the devil get a foothold, he doesn't want to go anywhere, and the devil is Trump. Now, with that all being said, Trump's previous offers to send U.S. forces into Mexico have been rebuffed, but the ongoing U.S. military strikes have added a new wrinkle to the already delicate relationship between the two countries, as seen by an unexpected phone call on October the 27th. So the Mexican Navy got a call from the Pentagon that day, informing officials that there may be a survivor in the Pacific Ocean from a U.S. strike. The call and the strike prompting it surprised Mexico, as U.S. officials had provided no advance warning. Like, they didn't even know what's going on. What are you talking about? Blowing up boats, airstrikes. While still in international waters, the incident happened near Mexico's coast, immediately raising concerns about the expansion of the U.S. counter-narco strategy. Are they going to target Mexico next? Now, the two other known survivors from earlier strikes were briefly detained on a U.S. Navy ship, but ultimately repatriated to their home countries of Ecuador and Colombia, amid questions about the legality of holding them, okay, according to sources. So clearly they weren't smugglers. Do y'all hear this? This is all crazy. Now, in Mexico City, after the October the 27th call, senior Mexican officials scheduled a meeting with the U.S. ambassador to try to understand why Mexico, a close U.S. partner working with the U.S. on counter-drug operations already, was not aware of the strike and what to expect moving forward. A readout of the meeting described it as cordial and aimed to strengthen bilateral coordination between Mexico and the United States on maritime matters. Now, in maritime is talking about the sea. the water, not on land. Weeks later, the Mexican Navy has not located their survivor from that strike after having called off its formal search, and the unnamed person is presumed dead. This is so damn sad. Imagine being on a boat, you get bombed. You may be missing a limb, your leg, or anything could have gotten blown off. And you're out there in those darn waters, waiting and praying, hoping somebody comes to rescue you, and nobody ever does. Okay, you could cling to life for days, for hours. Okay, for hours. You could literally be clinging to life for hours, suffering. This is torturous. This is so damn sad. It is really so sad. Like, I literally want to cry right now. This is pitiful. It's pathetic. Presumed dead. Who knows who that poor person was? May they rest in peace. May all of those people rest in peace, all 80 of them. This is awful. For its part, Mexico has responded to Trump's focus on the drug trade and framing of terrorist networks driving trade by trying to placate the Trump administration with numbers. An effort begun well before the strikes commenced. Okay, in calls before or between Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum and Trump, Sheinbaum has kept the U.S. president updated on progress and metrics as it relates to crime. Trump administration officials said that the two leaders have developed a good relationship despite Sheinbaum's public opposition to the administration's boat strikes and continue to work together on multiple fronts. She doesn't agree with these strikes, and anybody with sense wouldn't. The Mexican embassy in Washington declined to comment for this story. Now, earlier this year, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that countries cooperatively working with the U.S. on drug smuggling efforts should not be concerned about unilateral U.S. strikes or smugglers from their nations, saying they're going to help us find these people and blow them up if that's what it takes. They're going to help us with it. So far, nobody's helping them. They're doing it themselves. Okay, because this is all illegal. These are war crimes. These are absolutely war crimes. Okay. Now, while there are strengths to effectively conducting a counterterrorism mission at the U.S. border, namely using the full power of the U.S. intelligence community and military to identify vulnerabilities within these various groups, multiple current and former officials told CNN there are obvious pitfalls. You think? Those include issues related to collateral damage and managing political outrage from countries that are increasingly concerned the U.S. may violate their sovereignty by conducting lethal strikes within their borders. Those are similar challenges to what U.S. officials grappled with during the global war on terror. Now, the former U.S. intelligence official compared the U.S.-Mexico dynamic to that of dealing with Pakistan during that time. Initially, the U.S. refrained from conducting unilateral operations inside Pakistan's borders, spending years asking for permission before carrying out strikes against suspected terrorists. They asked permission. Okay, that was the right thing to do. Trump doesn't ask anybody's permission, and he also said the other day that he doesn't even like asking God for forgiveness. So he's definitely the devil. Pakistan never said no, according to the former official, and the U.S. eventually moved into a phase of simply notifying the country rather than asking for permission before a strike. Okay, so they just moved on and started doing it without even asking. Unlike Pakistan, however, the Mexican government has repeatedly said no to Trump when he has raised the prospect of deploying the U.S. military inside the country to target drug groups. Mexico said they'll handle their own people. They don't need Trump getting involved because you give him a foot or you give him an inch, he'll take a mile. Now, senior U.S. intelligence officials have insisted that they are collaborating with the Mexican government when it comes to countering the flow of drugs, and that any military or covert action carried out across the border will not be done unilaterally. But that has done little to ease the concerns of Mexican officials who believe that decision ultimately lies solely with the president. So while all the strikes to date have been at sea targeting boats allegedly carrying drugs, lawyers in the Trump administration have been debating potential justifications to extend those strikes to land. Say what now? Do y'all hear this? definitely try to start a whole war. One strategy they have debated would be to identify land targets. Now, the U.S. believes to be associated with drug trafficking, and justifying those strikes with a second legal option that declares the host country unable or unwilling to address an imminent threat to Americans. Sources familiar with the administrations say this is absolutely what they're thinking. Another possibility is to add Mexican cartels to an existing secret list of 24 cartels and criminal organizations that the administration argues are legitimate targets. There's no indication that a decision to conduct land strikes has been made as of yet. Still, the ongoing strikes in international waters are straining relations between U.S. and allies. Okay, let me repeat, U.S. and allies. The United Kingdom is no longer sharing intelligence with the U.S. about suspected drug trafficking vessels in the Caribbean because it does not want to be complicit in U.S. military strikes and believes the attacks are illegal, and they are. The UK's decision marks a significant break from its from its closest ally and intelligence sharing partner, and underscores the growing skepticism over the legality of the U.S. military's campaign around Latin America. Latinos for Trump. Latinos for Trump. How y'all feel now? Make yourselves make sense. Okay? I have questions. How do y'all feel now that Trump is doing this to your very own people? Now, in response to CNN's reporting, Colombian President Gustavo Petro announced that he had ordered the country's security forces to suspend intelligence sharing with the U.S. So they're not going to share anything with the U.S. either in the way of intelligence. Okay? So them to stop sharing intelligence with the U.S. security agencies until the U.S. stops the strikes. It was the escalation of a public spat between Trump and Petro, who in Colombia leads a country that has been a crucial partner in U.S. efforts to combat drugs. Now, that dispute reached a fever pitch when one of the two survivors of U.S. strikes, who is Colombian, was repatriated. So the man was subsequently released by Colombian authorities due to a lack of evidence that he was an alleged trafficker. Okay. According to Petro, who has continued to question the U.S. strategy of shoot first, ask questions later. Isn't that what the whole U.S. does, the police included? Yeah, that's what they usually do. Colombia's prosecutor's office, independent of the government, cannot investigate without evidence. Now, thousands of people were captured on boats with the seized Coca-Cola, or they're tried in Colombia, but the method of killing them and not seizing the evidence does not allow for trials. At most, only bodies are collected without really knowing what they were even transporting. This is what Petro posted on social media, and it's no lies detected. Like, this is all crazy as hell. Okay, this is all crazy as hell. Now, what do y'all have to say? I find it also egregious. Perplex says, does this not sound familiar? Remember Desert Storm? Remember the wars of Afghanistan, Iraq? United Nations did not give authorization, told to stand down, yet we moved forward anyway? Yeah, because that's what the U.S. does. That's what the U.S. does, honey. Now, our military, Ryder says, our military is being thinned out. This isn't going to work. We cannot be everywhere. Clearly, they think they can. Now, Kikoba says, question, isn't the real drugs and human part smuggling operations happening underground in those mega tunnels from coast to coast? Yeah, likely so, beloved. But, Trump thinks he knows everything, and he's clearly trying to distract us, so it is what it is. So with that all being said, I'm going to conclude this broadcast. Goodness rated both said, how many more days of Trump? Honey, I know, right? Too many. Too damn many. Okay, one's too much at this point. So anyway, I want to thank you all for tuning in. Please like, share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. Okay, I will be back. Well, I'm not going to say for sure. I think I'll be back later. Yeah, I'll be back later because I do have something else I want to talk to you all about. So I'll be back later. Melody said, didn't the Secret of War want most of our, the Secretary of War, you meant Secretary of War, want most of our people removed from the military? You want a whole lot of people removed, okay? Fat people, gay people, trans people, Okay, he just wanted people removed. People with long hair, people with beards. Yeah, he wanted a lot of people removed, beloved. Okay, women. Okay, and so that's no shock. Now, with that all being said, I love you all to life. I hope you all enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. I will be back later. It'll probably be around 6:30. Okay, so check the channel, check my community tab and Twitter for the links. And I love you all to life. And each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. And during these trying times that we're all facing, please be sure that you are doing your due diligence, collecting your non-perishable food items, purchasing water every time you go to the store, that you have candles, lights, lighters, matches, and things that you need, first aid kits. Okay, get a few people that you can barter with at the end of the day, because it's going to be all bad. Okay, I told y'all I had a dream the other night that we were thrust into darkness. Okay, there was an attack on the power grid. Okay, please pay attention. Y'all know my dreams be coming true. Now, with that all being said, I love you all to life. Each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember to keep the Most High first in your lives. Peace.
Yo, Nick, hit him with that flavor. Gold all in my skin, God all in my blood. Kings all in my circle, you touch one of mine and you're done. They show no love for the queen, why you hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans? I got dreams like King Luther, shed blood like Kunta. You ain't helping my people, I ain't got nothing to say to ya. I want all the smoke like hookah. Talking reparations, America won't be great until they give us compensation. I'm like, I'm the hottest right now. See a bunch of lames out here trying to jock on my style. They be doing too much. I'm the queen, it's too easy. It's like they all at Popeyes, how they be talking so greasy. I just sit back and laugh while these haters get madder. So nefarious how they don't want my pockets with cheddar. I tell them they can do better. These snakes in the grass can leave a bite on your ass, cause y'all be trusting too fast. I got my foot on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regrets, we only facing the threats. Running through every challenge like a relay, break no sweat. It's a cold game, so I got that blanket with me. Now that my people awaken, ain't no going to sleep. I do not play by my piece, this time I'm playing for keeps. You talking slick, but when I see you like them ends, we gon' meet. And I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood. Kings all in my circle, you touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen, why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood. Kings all in my circle, you touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen, why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got